Well, I suppose it is a happy St. Patty's Day, or at least celebrated here in Pittsburgh. I am Dan Kingerski on the National Hockey Now and the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel. The Penguins escape, although it doesn't sound like it. The Penguins escape with a 5-1 win over the Philadelphia Flyers. Instead of a 5-minute post-game wrap, we're going to do another post-game Q&A with your questions. I must say, as I just published on Pittsburgh Hockey Now, the Penguins won. They scored a trio of goals in the final 5:36, but that was not good enough. That wasn't close to good enough. That was not an intense, that was not a passionate, that was not a well-played game by the victors. They beat a hapless Philadelphia team that has lost 15 of their last 19 after falling to the Penguins. In other words, the Flyers have packed it in this season, and the Penguins, in fact, did squeak by. Now, I know I'm not alone in that opinion in talking to some colleagues, and I won't out them. I'll let them write or say what they're going to say on their own platforms, but there was a lot of head shaking after the first and second period. Like, what is this team doing? They had merely a 2-1 lead. I don't think the shots matter. I don't think many of the statistics matter. The one I will cite would be from naturalstattrick.com, in which the Penguins had just 7 high-danger scoring chances the entire game. 7 against the Philadelphia Flyers. Somebody, somewhere in that locker room has to stand up, maybe turn the air blue. I know Jason Zucker said they don't have guys who are really the stick-breaking type. Maybe it's time somebody did break a stick or flip a table, challenge his team. Someone needs to get this team excited or passionate. Someone needs to bring the best out of them, because this is their roster. There's nobody waiting to come up. They have Alex Nylander up, and we'll get to him as well. So let's hit the Pittsburgh Penguins Q&A here on National Hockey Now and the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel. Kenny asks, Nylander, strong game. Does he stick for the rest of the season? Let me center myself. Does Nylander stick for the rest of the season? There are some moving parts to that question. As much as I think the Penguins would want to say yes. The reason he was recalled, another emergency recall here on Saturday, was because Nick Bonino suffered a lacerated kidney. It was not when he got hit by a puck against the Islanders. We're told it was kind of an innocuous play. At least that's when the Penguins think it happened. So Bonino probably out a few weeks, somewhere between, let's call it somewhere between 3 and 6. He was released from the hospital, in fact, on Saturday. At least Mike Sullivan thinks he was being released from the hospital on Saturday. Nylander's recall is now kind of tied to Bonino. I tried to untangle this with the help of Puckpedia on Pittsburgh Hockey Now Friday. And so I'll just kind of rewind before the Bonino injury. If the Penguins had waited until Monday, they could have recalled Nylander free and clear, not tied to the Ryan Poehling long-term injury, and not tied to the Bonino emergency recall. He could have come up on Monday free and clear. Now, because he is an emergency recall, that salary cap accrual, where they actually get more space because the season gets shorter and the money stays the same, it's kind of a ridiculous formula and a process, but we'll go with it. That gets paused. So let's just say Bonino would come back a week from now. It's not, let's just use that as a prime example. Then the Penguins have to send Nylander down for 4 days before they can, in fact, recall him, at least on a regular recall. If Ryan Poehling isn't ready, they can recall Nylander and use their long-term injury reserve space. But that resets the clock and ties Nylander to the health of somebody else. So, in short, can he stay the rest of the season? I don't know. At this point, I think necessity is recalling him now. Let's get to his performance. On Saturday, he was kind of the defensive wing of the Malkin and Zucker line. take it for what you will. Alex Nylander learning to play defense in the first period. I mean, if you watch closely, and I know this is some of those small details that sometimes, fans don't notice. You're watching the offensive end of the ice. Hey, I think we all do that, right? But in the first period alone, I think in the first 7 minutes, it was about, I could check my notes. Actually, it looks like it was about 3 minutes in. It was Nylander back breaking up a scoring chance, just as he did against the New York Islanders. If you're a coach, you notice those things. Mike Sullivan did. Mike Sullivan said what's impressed him is Nylander's play away from the puck in the defensive zone, the details, he called it. And in fact, on that same shift that Nylander kind of broke up a scoring chance, he and Malkin collided a little bit near the offensive blue line because Nylander is the F3, we'll call that the high forward, like the last forward into the offensive zone. You kind of have some defensive responsibilities. Nylander stayed high, maybe a little too close to the blue line, but regardless. And Malkin did his big loop around the zone and was almost surprised to find Nylander there. It's one of those things, they'll figure it out. That's not a mistake on either guy's part. But it does kind of go to show you the responsibility, the care, the conscientiousness that the Penguins' recall is showing. That's going to earn him a lot of points with Mike Sullivan going forward. I don't know where his game goes from here. This is certainly a different player playing a different game than he has played in the 7 years since he was selected 8th overall by the Buffalo Sabres. This is a different player in a different game. I'm impressed as well. But whether or not he sticks, I don't have any crystal ball. I think the Penguins would admit, and I will say now, that if it were based purely on play, he does, at least in his first couple of games. We've seen guys get called up, look great, and then fall off a cliff. Barring that, Nylander stays. What did I think of the new third line? 10-77. Wait, no, it was 10-64 and 19. It was okay. Granlund does not win enough faceoffs. See, there again, the Penguins have a problem on their third line. Faceoffs. I thought Granlund played pretty well today. What Granlund does, there are so many quiet little things that he does. Those smooth little passes. They're just these slick little 5-foot passes. Or he'll hold it, and in fact, he set up the... who deflected it? Rickard Rakell. The first goal of the game. Set up by Mikael Granlund because he didn't make the easy pass. He deked everybody into thinking he was going to make the easy pass. Sent the pass to the far point to a wide open Pettersson. I thought that was pretty smooth of Granlund. I need a lot more information, though, before I'm comfortable with the third line. By the way, I did ask Mike Sullivan in his post-game availability what he thought of his bottom six, if he felt he was getting more comfortable, if he felt he was zeroing in. I will say that he kind of dodged my question a little bit, which tells me that he doesn't feel like he has enough information or doesn't feel like he has his lines set in stone just yet. He did put his lines in a blender on Saturday with Brian Rust going to the top line, Nylander playing on the second line with Malkin and Zucker, and Rickard Rakell dropping down to the third line. It was all about balance, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Let's see here. Spencer asks us, why hasn't Crosby used his one-timer more often? I'm not in the habit of questioning Sidney Crosby's hockey game. I'm taking the pass, kids. Look, he's let it rip recently, hasn't he? But he does so many things just perfectly, brilliantly. If Sidney Crosby thinks he has to use his one-timer more, I promise you he will be at the next Penguins practice there 15 minutes early taking one-timers, and he will do it all summer if that's what he thinks he needs to do. Short answer. Simon asks, stick with the same lines on Sunday? Yeah, I guess so. If the principle is to balance the lines, yeah, I mean, look, I don't think the Penguins' top line had much juice. Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust. I didn't think that line was at its best today. And for whatever reason, Rust just hasn't meshed well with Sidney Crosby this year. So do you flip do you flip Raquel and Rust, put Rust down to the third line, and Raquel up to the top line, keeping Nylander with Malkin? I don't know. I was not a fan of the Penguins' effort on Saturday. Obviously, I did not grade it well. I did not write well about it. Well, actually, maybe I wrote well, but I did not praise it in my writing on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. So would I keep the same? I suppose hockey coaches are loath to change the lines after a win. But if there is a win to change the lines after, it would have been that one behind me here on Saturday afternoon, because it was lethargic, lackluster, sloppy. I won't call it loose, because they didn't allow a lot of scoring chances either. But I just didn't like it. I thought it lacked the passion and the energy. So if you put Nylander with Granlund, I don't think you'll see Nylander with Crosby. But what the hell? If Sullivan's putting everything in a blender to see what he's got, maybe you see that. I know a lot of fans are like, yeah. At this point, I think all bets are off. At this point, I think the Penguins are trying to find, and Mike Sullivan is trying to find the right combinations. He knows that he hasn't found them yet. Take that for whatever it's worth. If he did feel confident, I don't think he would have put them in a blender on Saturday. Asking Nylander to play with Crosby against the opponent's top line, that's a huge ask. I mean, let's be honest here. You don't want to expose, you don't want to put too much on Nylander too soon. I probably would put him down on the third line. Maybe put Rust back with Malkin and Raquel. But that's me. I think the one thing, Jeff Carter a breakaway. He had I think Jeff Carter had another solid-ish game. This was not as good as he played against the Islanders, not as good as he played against Columbus, but there's a competence beginning to reemerge in Jeff Carter's game. So I think that gives Sullivan some hope. It doesn't hurt to play with Josh Archibald as a little spark plug, and Danton Heinen, who's playing some of his most responsible, complete, three-dimensional hockey that he's played with the Penguins. The thing about Danton Heinen, and I think it's relevant to keeping the same lines, the thing about Danton Heinen is, in the past, when he's not been scoring, he's not helped you win. Over the past couple of weeks, since Mike Sullivan put him in the press box and told him specifically, hey, we need to see, a lot more responsibility, a more complete game from you, I think Heinen has, in fact, responded well to that. So, then again, you play a few more games and the bottom six doesn't score, or the top six struggles to score goals beyond the final 5 minutes when Philadelphia kind of packed the U-Haul and was ready to head back for some Pats with Wiz. We'll see. I think things are still in flux. So we'll call it a day from PPG. I'll see you back here tomorrow. I'm going to try to make these with your interest anyway. I'm always gauging your interest on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. When we do a feature and it doesn't work, I stop doing it. When we do it and it starts working, like the Penguins locker room, which Dave Molinari is doing right now, then we keep doing it. All right, so we'll do another Q&A after the Rangers game on Sunday. Have some fun this weekend. Get yourself some green beer and pancakes or potato cakes or whatever else sounds good. All right, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now, the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. Do me a favor, if you've gone this long, like and subscribe.